Today's show is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the easiest way to create a beautiful website, blog, or online store for you and your ideas. Squarespace features an elegant interface, beautiful templates, and incredible 24/7 customer support. That's actually true. Their support is amazing. I've used them several times. Try Squarespace at squarespace.com and enter offer code Harris at checkout to get 10% off. Squarespace, build it beautiful. Let's get to the show.
It's the Harris Football Podcast with your host, Christopher Harris.
Welcome. All right, welcome in. I am Chris Harris. This is the Harris Football Podcast. Thank you for listening. To quote Thomas Paine, who I think might have been talking about fantasy football when he said, "These are the times that try men's souls." Certainly old Tom should have said women too, so I'll add women's souls too. We got a few lessons in week 2, but I think chief among them is stop trying to predict game flow. We can look at tape and discuss talent. We can look at situations and be worried or excited. We can understand we were wrong about teams and players and other stuff. But don't tell yourself, Eagles, Cowboys, that'll be a shootout. Don't tell yourself, Patriots, Bills, boy, points will be at a premium. I mean, you can tell yourself those things, but don't make fantasy decisions based on them. You have to train yourself, because in general, the NFL media, and I'll say it, the fantasy football media, is incredibly stupid, so you hear it all the time. Heck, you hear it from some of the analysts we bring on this show, and everyone who comes on here, I would say, is extremely smart, but our football culture is so drenched in the dumbness of trying to predict game flow that they can't help themselves. Make decisions based on talent, on opportunity, on what you see, on your judgment of the quality of a player's situation, but not because it's going to be a shootout.
Can't do it.
Exactly, Samurai Mike. Can't do it.
Today's kickoff.
On today's show, as will be the case every Monday, I'll review tape so you don't have to. If you're new to the podcast, that's kind of the advantage we have here. We don't speculate. We don't worry about the box score. I watch every game's film and tell you what I see. Half the games today, half the games tomorrow. Today I'll look at Seahawks, Packers, Niners, Steelers, Falcons, Giants, Cardinals, Bears, and Lions, Vikings. And then we were supposed to have a special guest to talk about a couple of other games. Unfortunately, technical troubles caused our special guest not to be able to hook up with us today. We will do that in the near future. So I will tackle on my own the Cowboy-Eagles game and the Bills-Patriots game, and also do a Monday night preview. You heard off the top that Squarespace is sponsoring today's show, and I'm super glad because Squarespace is how we make our website here on the little podcast that could. Indeed, since we launched 6 weeks ago, our site has gotten more than 640,000 page views, and Squarespace has handled them all brilliantly. It's really a great service, completely customizable, no coding required at all, starts at $8 per month, and you get a free domain if you sign up for a year. With Squarespace, you really can make a website that looks however you want it to look. At Harris Football, I wanted super simple, so we pulled a lot of stuff out of the template, but you can really do anything, make it look like anything you can imagine, and you don't have to code one bit. Start your free trial site today. Just pick a domain and start building right now with no credit card required at squarespace.com. And if and when you decide to sign up, make sure to use the offer code Harris to get 10% off your first purchase. All right, so the biggest fantasy-altering news coming out of Sunday night's Seattle-Green Bay game was Eddie Lacy, a sprained ankle in the first half. He was unable to return. James Starks, full-time work in Lacy's absence. Did I think Starks looked like Lacy? No. He had a catch and fumble in the second quarter, which wasn't good. 35 of his yards came on a long third-quarter run where the hole was massive. Still, give him credit. He's a big guy, a veering runner, a little bit of speed. As of this recording, We don't know how long Lacy might be out, but while I'll say Starks just isn't as talented a player, if he's the pure starter in an Aaron Rodgers offense, he's at least top 15 among running backs for Week 3 against the Chiefs, and that's going to make him an intriguing waiver add if he wasn't already handcuffed to Lacy in your league. Randall Cobb continues to just be terrific, just so smart the way he runs out of the slot and settles into the empty spaces in a zone. He's just such a safe receiver. He's top 10 forever. James Jones just keeps on keeping on as an end zone target. He burned Richard Sherman on a long one in the first quarter. He was a butt cheek away from another score at the very end of the second quarter. And in the fourth quarter, he drew an illegal contact penalty in the red zone. So not bad work if you can get it. Not really targeted otherwise, but you'll take the scores. Devontae Adams, 5 grabs for 33 yards, lost time because of his own sprained ankle, where he had to get carted off the field. And Ty Montgomery picked up some of the slack. It'll vary week to week. Cobb is clearly the best of the group. But I have to say, of the 3 Packer receivers, all 3 of them feel pretty viable to me as fantasy starters, depending on your situation. Jimmy Graham turned mortal, 1 catch for 11 yards, didn't get the end zone that he got last week in Week 1. This leaves the number of NFL tight ends you can count on every single week at 1, you-know-who. But yeah, no, I mean, you can't panic with Graham. He's still number 2 among tight ends until further notice. The Pack had the advantage of being able to cover him with Morgan Burnett much of the time, something most teams don't have the quality at nickel and safety and, basically in the middle of that defense to be able to do. Marshawn Lynch owners rescued a little bit when beast mode got a little bit untracked in the fourth quarter, but there are real problems on that Seattle line. And that says nothing of Fred Jackson stealing a touchdown catch. I think the Hawks can get the line fixed, especially Week 3 against the hapless Bears. But among the teams who are struggling at the offensive line, we're going to talk about the Eagles later in the show. They're another one. The Broncos certainly really struggling. Some offenses with really good weapons whose offensive lines are not doing much in the run-blocking arena. We're also brought to you today by Stamps.com. Getting your mailing and shipping done can seem like a no-win situation. Going to the post office takes up valuable time. Leasing a postage meter is expensive with multi-year commitments and hidden fees. Luckily, there's a better way, Stamps.com. With Stamps.com, you can buy and print official U.S. postage for any letter or package right from your desk using your own computer and printer, all while avoiding those time-consuming trips to the post office that can be so painful. Hey, when you win swag from us playing trivia on our video Q&As, I use Stamps.com to send out the swag. Right now, use my last name, Harris, for this special offer. You get a 4-week trial plus $110 bonus offer, which includes a digital scale and up to $55 free postage. So don't wait. Go to Stamps.com, and before you do anything else, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in Harris. That's Stamps.com. Enter Harris.
Game Film Rewind.
Let's talk 49ers Steelers, also known as the Carlos Hyde conundrum. The Niners came out sharp on offense, I thought. Hyde was gashing the Steelers on their first 2 drives. Kaepernick, he should be given a chance to run the read option with Hyde all the time, because when Hyde is on form, it is a torture chamber for an opposing defense. Hyde had 44 yards on 10 touches, the centerpiece of the offense on 2 drives. Thought he looked great. But then came our old friend, game flow. Ben Roethlisberger, absolutely sharp, on point himself, and the Niners looked helpless, and boom, 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 the scoreboard was out of control. And while Hyde was on the field, he wasn't getting carries any longer. He didn't actually suffer his head injury until a reception late in the third quarter. And the good news is it apparently wasn't a concussion. Anyway, on Hyde, I'll say any running back can be game flow dependent. He was out there a ton. He continued to look very good when he got the chance under normal scoreboard circumstances, and I still feel terrific about him as a top 15 fantasy back. On that same drive, Anquan Bolden and Bruce Miller Both had stupid, ridiculous drops. Kaepernick, didn't play badly. He was simply swarmed under by his own defense, and we have to admit his stats were padded by garbage time, though he had a rushing touchdown taken away by replay late in the fourth quarter on a fourth down. Big Ben and Antonio Brown, duh. That's all I'm going to say, duh. D'Angelo Williams, 3 touchdowns, but I did think he looked worse than his debut against New England. Le'Veon Bell comes back this coming week against the Rams. I think what's been proven is that losing Mike Pouncey won't be the end of the world for Pittsburgh's running game, and also that, D. Willie isn't done, and Bell won't have the job entirely to himself. We're going to be looking at a 75-25 split is my prediction. If you're a Bell owner, don't drop Williams, and don't panic if you're a Bell owner, because, LeGarrette Blount got work last year, too, before he got cut. Williams is a rock-solid handcuff for Bell. He's probably not too much more than that. Oh, and if you've got Josh Scobie, life may be very frustrating for you because Steelers apparently are going to go for 2 a lot. Chargers-Bengals. I love all the preseason analysts who told you how very bad Melvin Gordon looked, how unprepared he seemed for the NFL. Yeah, right. Very first carry, 26 yards, awesome stuff. Twitch cut past one tackler, great acceleration, everything you loved about him in college. Danny Woodhead did get the first Chargers red zone carry, but the very next play, Gordon was in there for a play fake on the touchdown that Stevie Johnson scored. Woodhead, he really did next nothing until it was 24-13 with 6 minutes left to go in the game. Then he was in there for the hurry-up. All you angry tweeters who thought it was so dumb not to love Woodhead this week, stop. Melvin Gordon is the truth. He's going to be ranked ahead of Woodhead. Keenan Allen, maybe less the truth. He fumbled a punt on the first series, also had a horrendous drop in the second quarter, wound up with 2 catches for 16 yards. Really, it was kind of just a weird game for the San Diego receivers in general. Malcolm Floyd did nothing until his blown coverage touchdown. Stevie wasn't all that involved, but did happen to get the score himself. Probably mostly going to look at a mulligan here for Rivers and the rest of them, and maybe that target total for Keenan Allen in week 1. Not likely to be an every week phenomenon. What lessons can we take from the Bengals backfield in week 2? Well, that's a tough one for Jeremy Hill owners. Even before Hill lost his second fumble on a pitch out, where he just didn't look the ball into his hands, I have to say that maybe Gio Bernard outplayed him even before then. Gio was in on third downs, in the spread, in hurry-up, and in some regular old first downs. All that is already a drain on Hill, and then something like this happens, and Hill pretty clearly was benched after that second fumble. And then Bernard's very first carry thereafter was this great run where he's stopped, and he makes something from nothing for 11 yards. And in the fourth quarter, oh my God, what a move he put in the open field on poor Jason Verrett. You're not allowed to go nutty over Amir Abdullah and not gush over Gio. He also had a touchdown taken away on a holding call. He was awesome killing the clock late. It was the kind of performance you can imagine turning the tide a little bit in that Cincinnati backfield. I'm not going to say it's an even timeshare yet. I'm not going to say Hill's, definitely punished, but you can imagine a scenario where it could happen because Bernard looked that good. Week 3 against the Ravens, we're not going to know anything until we see him line up. I'm going to have Hill rated above Bernard, but I'm certainly going to be watching because it wouldn't be a total shock if Gio has earned a bigger spot. Falcons, Giants. There are some surprisingly bad offensive lines in the NFL through 2 weeks. I already mentioned a few of them, but I'm not sure we should be surprised the Giants line is bad. You may remember Ross Tucker coming on this very program in August and listing the Giants as a line he was really concerned about. And there's a real problem with the run blocking. You almost get the idea that at some point the team may look at themselves and say, man, we should just have Shane Vereen in there most of the time and throw. They also lost rookie left tackle Eric Flowers to an injury. Not sure how serious that is yet. Rashad Jennings basically bottled up. Andre Williams busted a 35-yarder in the third quarter, but was literally untouched for 25 of those yards, I would say. Vereen, only 3 touches after the Giants were up 10, and it seemed like a pretty big mistake to me. I would say, keep throwing to him, but, for the moment, kind of hands off in that backfield. It's not a good situation offensive line-wise. Tevin Coleman had me sold in week 1 and had a few nice runs Sunday, but then on kind of an innocuous-looking catch, he apparently hurt his ribs and had to be carted off the sideline, never came back. As of this recording, no word about the severity, but Devontae Freeman, he certainly was the every down back thereafter, but I thought he was decidedly so-so on tape in Coleman's absence. Kind of reminded me of the days when the Falcons wanted to sell us on Jacquizz Rodgers as a feature back. Freeman did poke in a 1-yard touchdown, but just you watch him play, he should be a receiving back in the NFL. He just gets tossed around between the tackles. There could also be a story brewing with Roddy White and Leonard Hankerson. Roddy got a target on the second play of the game Sunday, and never again. Didn't look like he was hurt on that target. Didn't see any elbow issue or anything like that. He was out there all the time thereafter, run blocking. He was running routes. I don't have the snap totals in front of me, but my guess is that Roddy played most of them, and Hankerson, was the third receiver, but he's the one who had 11 targets and a touchdown and came very close to a second touchdown that was reversed on replay. I wouldn't say Hankerson was necessarily good. He seemed like he was not, on the same page, as they say, with Matt Ryan at times, kind of an option route where he would not make the right decision, or at least not the decision Ryan thought he was going to make. Hankerson had a drop. He doesn't show the long speed, I remember, from his Washington days. I mean, he was a sprinter back in high school. I don't want to jump to conclusions here. Hankerson seemed to me like the number 3 receiver. Maybe Atlanta just loved his matchups against the depth in the Giants secondary. But it certainly is, it's at least being wary of Roddy for week 3. I think we have cause to lower him in the ranks a little bit. And then I'm not going to bump Hankerson up too much because I didn't love how he looked, despite what the numbers look like. But we're certainly going to have an eye on the situation going forward.
Film Room Surprise.
So I do these live video Q&A chats on Sundays before kickoffs, Thursdays too. And someone asked me who was a better stash, David Johnson or Kristen Michael. And, justifiably, I think, I said Michael. And then there was an opening kickoff in the Arizona-Chicago game, and David Johnson takes the kick 108 yards for a touchdown. And also, by the way, snares the game-clinching touchdown run in the third quarter. Overall, I'm not going to overreact to that box score issue. This was a chopped-up Arizona backfield in Andre Ellington's absence. And, that's not a surprise. Chris Johnson looks dominant on the score sheet because he was the workhorse once Arizona was up 2 touchdowns, but David Johnson spelled him regularly when it was competitive and got a long target down the field. He couldn't quite haul in. That's going to be something to watch because David Johnson on a linebacker is a mismatch, and Carson Palmer seems very comfortable going in that direction. Larry Fitzgerald gets 3 touchdowns, which is awesome if you started him. Awesome in DraftKings too, wow. But, realize that John Brown, who doesn't look like much in the box score, Smokey had 2 long pass interference calls that set up short scores. He will have his day. He's going to make plays on long targets where the defense decides they don't have to haul him down. So I'm not worried about Brown at all. I guess I understand how Jay Cutler hurt his hamstring. It's all those read options. All right. So maybe not really. Actually, Cutler hurt his hamstring on a terrible pick 6 where he's trying to make a tackle. But it is pretty shocking through 2 weeks how many read options Adam Gase has Cutler doing. It's working. It's throwing them off the scent of Forte a little bit, and Cutler has some actual runs towards the sidelines where he's gotten some gains. But maybe we're putting the kibosh on that after the injury. We'll have to hope that Cutler won't miss any more time because Jimmy Clausen was not good. This probably puts to rest the idea that the Bears would be better with Clausen. Remember the Josh McCown talk? Yeah, they weren't going to be better with him either. It was a frustrating day for Matt Forte. He gets one series off in the second quarter. Jeremy Langford gets a short touchdown after Martellus Bennett gets tackled on the one. And Forte only really has one nice catch and run, and it was a beauty. What a cut from the right sideline into the center of the field. Wow, great move. Don't tell me he's over the hill. Don't tell me he's past his prime. He's got the moves, but the game just wasn't competitive. Alshon Jeffrey missing the day. It wasn't good. I'm sure it didn't help. I don't think Josh Bellamy and his blown coverage touchdown is worth considering for fantasy leagues just yet, unless he's actually Bill Bellamy from MTV Jams, which I've done some research. I don't think he is. And finally, let's get your weekly Detroit Lions backfield update in the Lions-Vikings game. And this week, the winner is Theo Riddick. And that's even with Riddick losing a fumble. What Week 2 showed is that game flow dependent. Riddick can actually find the game flow that has him play the most snaps of any Lions running back. Awesome. Joique Bell, 6 touches. Amir Abdullah, 7 touches. Riddick, and 6 touches. All because the Lions' offense was terrible and behind and, trying to catch up and hurry up, and Riddick was a big part of that. Riddick and Abdullah were on the field together some, but Riddick got most of the work in such situations. I'm going to keep having Bell and Abdullah near each other, and neither one looks like a fantasy star right now. Abdullah has the big play threat. Bell still feels like he would be the short touchdown guy, but we still don't know that after 2 weeks. Calvin Johnson. You never rule out the big bounce back because, he's healthy, he's huge, he can still run at least some, but take away the touchdown, and if I was the replay official, I might have taken away the touchdown, but if you take away that touchdown, we'd be talking about a drop-filled, so-so game in which Golden Tate seemed to be the better deep threat. I'm obviously going to keep ranking Megatron higher than Tate, but Matthew Stafford is not playing well. Seemed dissatisfied that one interception he threw got overturned by pass interference, so he promptly threw another one on the very next play. Maybe we should not be viewing that Detroit offense as elite anymore. As for the Vikings, I remember way back in the days of yore when super smart NFL analysts were telling us that Adrian Peterson just wasn't going to be effective until Minnesota stopped making him run out of the shotgun so much. That seems like a really long time ago now. Yeah, Peterson was great. Don't get me wrong. It would be swell if AP would convert from the one and maybe not fumble in the red zone. He actually fumbled twice in the red zone on Sunday. He got one back himself. But if you're looking at tape to see how players actually appear to be, talent-wise and performance-wise, we are nitpicking. He was absolutely great. There is absolutely no worry right now with Adrian Peterson. If there's a worry, it's age 30 and can he stand up to the pounding? Because, man, that little flip forward that Bridgewater sent to him, anybody who thinks Peterson's top speed isn't there, watch him run down the sideline. Yeah, he gives up at the end of the run, but he's still got that speed. The Vikings receivers, somewhat less great, I think we would say. Charles Johnson, I was kind of aboard the Charles Johnson is safe bandwagon, and I do not feel that way right now. A stupid false start. Wide receivers should not be getting false starts. A near drop that it was a third down where if he'd caught it straight and just started running, he would have had a first down, but instead he bobbled it, didn't drop it, but didn't get the first down. Mike Wallace's highlight was having a first down overturned on review. Very ugly for these guys. Pretty much 2 weeks in a row. We're not seeing swashbuckling Norv setting the Minneapolis sky ablaze with fireworks. You're not cutting these receivers, but, it's 2 weeks now. So I think at this point I feel fine if you want to bench them. It's fairly tough for me to trust them in my lineup in just about any league format right about now.
Today's guest.
Actually, Amber, thank you for the drop. However, our guest, as I mentioned off the top, was unable to make the technology work today. We apologize. So you're going to have to put up with me describing these last couple of games. I had intended to mix it up a little bit, but you'll have to just deal with my impressions. First, let's start with Patriots-Bills.
Break out the footy pajamas.
No, not at all. I'm capable of being objective. If you had the under of a total of 70 points in this game, you lost. It was a weird game. The Bills looked dominant for the first two drives of the game, and then it was just destruction by the Patriots, and the Bills almost made a game of it with a bunch of points when the Pats backed off and kept throwing. While it was close, LaShawn McCoy was the only Bills player I felt I could really be excited about. He had, in total, 116 yards from scrimmage. He was shifty, showed acceleration, basically, makes everyone who doubts him week to week look foolish. Remember all those dumb reports about how he runs side to side too much? Come on. He's a tremendous player. You know who else ran side to side a lot? Barry Sanders. It's just something you put up with to get the good stuff. Shady got vultured by Carlos Williams from the 1, had an amazing 22-yard catch and run called back for an illegal formation. McCoy is great. Just use him. Sammy Watkins, quiet until he made a pretty good touchdown catch late in the game. It's good catch. I have all the more concerns about Tyrod Taylor after this game. The numbers will wind up looking okay, but his throwing accuracy is as bad as advertised. And, the Pats were able to get him to look at mostly just his first read and then duck his head and roam around the pocket. It wasn't as though he necessarily sprinted out of the pocket, but he gets jittery. He gets he ducks his head, doesn't look downfield. They really mostly contained him, except for that very first drive when he scrambled a little bit until the margin was wide. The difference between this week and last week was game flow. Here's our old friend again. The Bills were ahead last week, and he looked good, and they were behind this week, and he didn't look so good until, he almost saved them at the very end. There was pressure for him to throw this week. There wasn't pressure for him to throw in week 1. The Patriots set the model of how you need to defend this guy. They put 8 in the box early on, and they said, beat us. And, mostly Tyrod Taylor just wasn't that good. Patriots offense, do we, really need to talk about the passing game? Tom Brady, pretty darn good. Interesting way to attack the Bills. The Patriots just know the strengths of their opponents. And in this case, the Bills' defensive line is the strength. And so the Pats just decide we're not going to run up the middle. We're going to spread you out. You can throw all your crazy Rex Ryan blitzes at us all you want, and we're just going to rely on our Hall of Fame quarterback to get the ball out, which is what he did. And Julian Edelman had 19 targets as a result. That pass offense is going to be tough to stop for anybody. And that's with Aaron Dobson being the third fiddle, which is crazy. Danny Amendola didn't do anything for fantasy. That was a great catch to win the game basically at the end. Let's talk about the running game. It's worth noting that, as I mentioned last week, this was going to be a Dion Lewis game. He had 13 touches to 2 for LeGarrette Blount. Lewis was out there almost the entire game. Don't go crazy on Dion Lewis. This is going to be a week-by-week thing. Next week against Jacksonville, I would absolutely expect LeGarrette Blount would get more run. But Lewis is the Shane Vereen, and there are going to be games. There always were games with Shane Vereen where, when he was with the Patriots, where he was always tempting to start. It's going to be tough to trust him week to week, though. Mostly, I just don't really want to use any Patriot running backs, which is kind of what I was telling you all August. Hopefully you didn't invest heavily in the trash bag. LeGarrette Blount, I mean. So let's move on to one of the worst NFL games in recorded history. Eagles-Cowboys. The story obviously is Tony Romo. Romo. Brandon Weeden is going to be the quarterback. I thought it was awesome when Troy Aikman was saying, I'm a little concerned that Brandon Weeden's not warming up. And with good reason. He threw a touchdown pass late where Byron Maxwell just kind of quit. And otherwise, we're not probably looking at Whedon as much of a fantasy option. We'll see, but no Des Bryant. My assumption is that outside of a 2-quarterback league, really Whedon is not much of an option. Terrence Williams is the one who scored that touchdown. He kind of is what he is. I mean, I thought on a second quarter catch, there was a play that he made that was Dez-esque, where he was physical. He really fought for the ball. It actually wound up not counting because of an illegal formation, but it was kind of a good sign. And then, 2-minute drill at the end of the first half, a drop that's just soft as paper. And, I'm not going to say that touchdown was any great shakes, because basically it's a skinny post, and Byron Maxwell has decided I don't really want to play football anymore, and let him score it. But, I think if you have to have a Cowboy receiver, it's pretty well proven now that it's not Cole Beasley, right? It's going to be Terrence Williams, but it's going to be Brandon Whedon throwing it to him. So most leagues, I think it's hands off that Cowboy passing game certainly for week 3. It's not that the Falcon defense scares me all that much, but you just need to see them establish something consistent via the air before you can think about feeling good about using any of those players. So the running game,